rookie push-up for this exercise. So rather than doing your push-up from your feet, we're just going to do it from our knees. Now, very important with this one, you've got to maintain a straight line from your shoulder to your knee. Where people go wrong with this one is they lift their bum and it takes away the core engagement. So we want to make sure that we're not doing that. Because you're on your knees and it's a fairly easy push-up, let's try and make it nice and deep. Let's go down all the way and come straight back up. Your turn to try this one. Mountain climber from a prone floor position for this one. So you notice that I'm nice and light on my toes. The front foot doesn't touch the floor at all, okay? All your weight is on 3 points, your back foot as well as your two hands. Try and maintain your height as well as you can, and just nice lengthy mountain climbers for this one. Your turn. Starting from what looks like a supine plank, we're going to work a crisscross, okay? So all it is just opening those legs up, knees have got to remain nice and straight, and just switching between which leg is on top. So it's basically like semicircles around each other. Make sure your lower back is pinned against the floor and your shoulder blades are lifted in order to protect your back for this one. And again, just making sure that the legs remain nice and extended. Your turn to try it. Working a scapular push off the floor for this one. So lying in a supine position, making sure your elbows are tucked in by your ribs, and you want to make sure that your tailbone remains on the floor as you do this exercise. We're just going to push with the elbows. It's almost like you're trying to get yourself in a seated position, but you're only going to go part of the way there. So squeeze and then release back to the floor. Your turn to try this one. abs tucks for this exercise. So you can see that I'm starting with extended legs, feet and knees together, and then I'm bringing my knees all the way back to my chest and then releasing all the way until I've got straight legs again. Your lower back doesn't leave the floor, and you can see that I've got my head lifted in order to support my spine. Your turn. Extended plank. This is probably the hardest variation of a plank. It's one of my favorites. You've got to make sure you don't dip your back for this one because you can put some pressure on your lower back, so watch out for it. You want to try and extend out as far as you can, and then when it gets nice and difficult, you want to just try and hold it there. We're going to hold for 30 seconds. Your turn. X crunches for this exercise. So basically, it's just a reach with your hands to the opposite knee. So we're going to get that torso rotation happening. You've got to make sure that your lower back stays on the floor. We're lifting the shoulder blades and just crunching at an angle. Your turn to try this one. Bench abductions for this exercise. So what we want to do is start off with the plank on the bench. So it looks like an elevated plank, and then using the top leg, we're going to work some abductions. What you've got to make sure you do is maintain your straight line all the way through, and just make sure you've dropped your elbow directly underneath you for comfort. Nice controlled motion, and make sure that your feet remain horizontal. Your turn to try it. Okay, starting from lying on the bench, we're going to work some candles. So we just want to try and make sure our legs are remaining vertical and our knees are relatively straight. And it's just an elevation using your core and using your back, squeezing and lifting high as much as you can, and then dropping back until your tailbone touches the bench. Your turn to try this one. Half rollover for this exercise. You can see I'm using vertical arms in order to give me a guide, and I'm trying to keep my knees as straight as I can while throwing up those rollovers. Now I'm going to come back down, but I'm going to make sure I don't touch the floor, so you want that engagement of the lower abs, and then going straight back into it once again. Your turn. Isometric glutes bridge for this exercise. So you want to make sure you've got your feet parallel at shoulder width, and we're going to lift up into a glutes bridge. You want to make sure you've got a straight line from your knees to your shoulders. You're squeezing hard with your lower back and your glutes and hamstrings, and your hands are in the air so you've got no support. Your turn. Okay, starting with a side plank for this one, we're going to lift our hips up and really squeeze that inside oblique. We're going to hold it there for 45 seconds. And then what we want to do is turn around and do exactly the same thing on the other side as well. The important thing is to keep your weight on the side of your foot and keep your knees nice and straight for this one. Your turn to try it. alligator knee strikes from 3 points position on the bench. So you want to make sure you start with your extended leg and then you throw the knee strike outside of your elbow. Now we want to try and keep the hips as square as we can throughout this exercise. Let's do one leg and then switch it up and do the other side as well. Your turn. Working some up scissors for this exercise. Now you want to try and make sure that your knees are as straight as you can keep them, and it's just some scissor kicks, but they're vertical. Let's get you to have a go at this one. Mini pike pulses for this one. So starting from your elbows with 2 parallel lines, you want to push up into a slight pike and come back into your straight line. And we're just going to keep these pikes going. Pump them out. Let's go. Working a supine abs plank for this one. From a supine position, we're just going to lift our legs right up. You've got to make sure your toes are pointy and your knees are nice and straight. And we want to make sure we lift up our head and shoulder blades as well to create that deep abdominal contraction. We're going to hold it there for a minute. Your turn. obliques tilt from a supine position for this one. So knees are bent, feet are flat on the floor, and all we're trying to do from here is you're trying to reach your elbow to your hip bone. So it's a crunch to the side, and then we're going to center ourselves and then go again. Your turn to try it. Elevated glutes bridge for this exercise. So starting on the floor with my heels on top of the bench, and I'm going to squeeze my glutes and my hamstrings, and I'm going to apply all my weight onto my heels and lift all the way up. Now you can see I'm hitting a straight line from my shoulder to my knee once I'm elevated. So we've got to make sure we get there. Your turn to try this one. Prone angel wings for this exercise. So lying on your bench in a prone position, you want to make sure your chest is lifted, and we're just going to go with soft straight arms from in front of you all the way to your thighs in a horizontal motion. Your turn to try this one. Working some side steps from a plank position. So very important to sustain that straight line that you'll have from your shoulder to your ankle. So we want to make sure that we're not lifting our bum up for this exercise. And all it is just a step to the right, feet together, back to the middle, step to the left, and just keep alternating between those. Your turn to try it. lateral reach from a plank for this exercise. So all I'm doing is I'm shifting my weight from one elbow to the other and using the opposite hand to reach out with a straight arm perpendicular to your body. I'm just alternating from left to right and just making sure you're keeping that straight line from your ankle all the way to your shoulder. Your turn to try this one. Swiss Army knife crunches for this exercise. So you can see that I'm starting with extended arms and extended legs, toes nice and pointy, and then we're going to crunch up and your arms and legs are going to meet in the middle. And then we're going to work our way back. Now you've got to make sure that your hands and your feet don't touch the floor once you're extended out. Let's get you to try this one. Bench top crunch. Now make sure you get nice and close to your bench for this one, so you're creating a small package to start with. And then when you do those crunches, they're going to feel really tight because of the confined space. So this is an excellent way of training, in particular, your upper abs. Your turn to try this exercise. Hips thruster with a single leg for this one. So using the bench for a bit of elevation, you can see my arms are right out in that crucifix position, and I'm just pushing with the hips and lifting right up as much as I can and dropping back down. We're going to try this with both legs. Your turn. side plank for this one. So you could do this the traditional way with both your feet stacked together, or you could do it the way I'm doing it with your top foot in front. Now you want to make sure that you're holding a straight line from your ankle all the way to your shoulder. So watch for that and don't allow your hips to dip down. Make sure your shoulder's comfortable underneath you and that you're holding a vertical line with your arm. Your turn. For this exercise, we're going to take a downward dog position from the elbows. This one's going to be a little bit more stretching the hamstrings, and what we want to try and do is just lift up with your glutes and try and get your heels as close to the floor as you can while you're doing this. You're going to tuck your head in and keep your knees nice and straight. Your turn. Supine swimmer kicks for this exercise. So you can see I've got my shoulder blades lifted and I've got my arms by my side to support me on the floor. I've got my legs extended and my toes pointy and just working those swimmer kicks from there. Let's go for 45 seconds. Your turn. Working an adductor leg raise for this exercise. So we're starting off with a plank to get yourself into that horizontal line, and then using the bottom leg, we're going to push all the way up to the top leg, return it back to the floor, and keep working reps like that. Now what we'll do is we'll hit one side and then we'll turn around and do the other side as well. Your turn to try it. seated hips raised for this exercise. So very important, have your arms by your side, and you can see that I've got my fingers pointing out so that I'm not putting additional pressure on my wrists. And then it's a matter of just lifting your body until you've got a straight line from your shoulder all the way to your ankle. Put a little pause in there and then work your way back down. Now try to keep your knees soft straight throughout the exercise. Your turn to try it. Renegade Rotation. This is one of my favorite plank exercises. So you've got all of your weight steady on one arm and both your feet, and then with the opposite arm we're going to rotate and try and get your shoulder all the way down to the floor and then back all the way up with your arm pointing up in the air. We're going to do this off both sides. Your turn. Working some prone X crunches from a plank position. So all I'm doing is I'm basically connecting opposite knee and opposite elbow together while trying to balance in my plank position. Your turn to try this one. A supine version of the stir the pot for this exercise. So very similar to the one that you do with your suspension cables. What we're doing here is we've got our arms extended by our sides and we're just making sure that our shoulder blades are lifted. We're extending and tucking in a circular motion and changing directions every 5 repetitions. Your turn to try this one. corn cobs for this exercise. So this is a great upper body and core exercise. So you can see I'm starting with really wide arms, and then what I'm doing is I'm gliding across horizontal all the way to one side until I've got an extended arm, and then I'm working through and hitting the other side as well. All the meanwhile, I've got to make sure that I'm keeping a neutral back. So I want that straight line from my shoulder all the way to my ankle, and just really watching so that there's no arching and there's no dipping of the hips. Your turn to try this one. Working a low star for this one. So it's basically like a traditional side star, except we're going off our elbows rather than off our hand. So you can see all of my weight is on one arm and one foot, and we're just opening up those legs using those abductors as far as the other leg is concerned, and just pointing our arm straight up into the air. You're going to have to hold this for 45 seconds. Your turn. Bridge plank. Now, I like doing this one with my elbows tucked in and actually doing it from my knuckles. But if you're okay with your wrists and you want to do it with a flat palm, then that's okay as well. We're going to lift into a bridge, and then we're just going to hold it there for the duration of the minute. Your turn. Worm crunches for this exercise. So this is much like a traditional crunch, except as we crunch up, we're going to lift our tailbone up off the floor as high as you can. So we're essentially crunching the lower abs and crunching the upper abs at the same time. Your turn to try this one. from an elbow plank, we're going to go into an obliques rotation. So what you want to do with this one is point your hand up into the air. You've got to make sure your arm's vertical when you do it, and this basically requires a 90-degree torso rotation. Your turn to try this one. Recumbent bike. So this is probably the hardest of the bicycle kicks, just because of the restricted space and your hips working overtime for this one. So from a seated position, we're just leaning back and just extending and tucking those legs in that bicycle kick motion. Your turn to try this one. Okay, working an extend and retract from a plank position for this one. So this involves using your hands to take 4 steps forward and then holding your extended plank and then working your way back, retracting into a regular plank position. And then we're going to go again. Your turn to try this one. Basic hips raised for this exercise. So you can see I've got my feet at shoulder width and I'm lifting all the way up to a point where I'm going past straight line from my knee to my shoulder. Now you can see my hands are on the floor for support as well, so you're welcome to do that too. Your turn to try this one. doing some basic abs crunches for this one. So you can see that I've got my knees bent and my feet are flat on the floor. I've got my elbows side to side and I'm looking straight up so that I'm not yanking at my neck. Your lower back doesn't leave the floor at all. It's a crunch and not a sit up. Your turn.
Well done for finishing your workout, guys. Please take a few minutes to stretch and cool your body down now.
If you enjoyed this workout segment, please assist us by liking and sharing. Remember to subscribe for your daily workout fix.